There's an anecdote I want to mention. I think it comes from Bertrand Russell, where during one of his phases he was certainly pragmatic in his philosophical leanings, that I think nicely captures the evolution and skepticism points together. Russell asks us to imagine that we're a chicken, right, born as a little chick. And what we learn fairly quickly is the way the world works is the sun starts to come up each day, then the rooster crows, and then everybody kind of wakes up, and then the little chick will come out of the hen house toward the little area where the chickens hang out for the day. The farmer will come along and will throw down some feed, and then the chickens will go out and start to peck away at the food that the farmer has thrown down for it. And this happens for the first several months of the chicken's life, and as the chick is growing up and becoming a chicken itself, and it happens for the first year, right, of the chicken's life. And so we start then to say, on the basis of observation and noticing the patterns here, that there's a certain regularity built into the structure of the universe, and the chicken knows this, the regularity that's built into the structure of the universe through observation and experience here. But then what happens one day is the sun starts to come up, the rooster crows, the chicken wakes up, pokes its head out of the hen house. The farmer comes by, grabs it by the scruff of the neck, takes it over to the chopping block, and whack. The chicken then is going to be supper right that night. Now, what's the point here? Well, the point is, in part, evolution, right? The universe is subject to change. From the perspective of the chicken, the stability and the order and the regularity, that was only very localized and so forth. There was a sort of larger framework, right, according to which the world was operating, that the chicken was oblivious of, and the rules of the game changed, particularly for that chicken on that particular day. So the rules of the game were fairly regularly changing, and also the chicken, from its particular perspective, had very limited perspective, right? It was only aware of what was going on in that particular barnyard at that particular time for a certain amount of time. It did not have cognitive access, right, to that bigger picture, and so what it had was very tentative knowledge, or what it should have held to be very tentative knowledge, very partial knowledge, and it should have had the epistemological modesty. It should not ever have said, I know what is going to happen tomorrow. Instead, it should have had something much more tentative here. Now, to put these 2 points together, I wanted to formulate a criticism that the pragmatists then will make of both of the idealists and the realists, to differentiate themselves from both of those schools of thought. The depth of the taking seriously evolution, and the depth of taking seriously the skepticism here. And also, and again, partly explaining the name, pragmatism, why that was chosen, and why it's a very good choice of name for this approach philosophically. What the pragmatists will say is that both the idealists and the realists will, when they're thinking about the human condition, particularly the human condition philosophically, they will say and believe that we are primarily knowers. All right, I'll emphasize that. And secondarily, actors. And now what we mean by that in this context here is to say that for idealism and realism, the major project philosophically, and the major project then in life, is to come to acquire knowledge. Good knowledge, solid knowledge, true knowledge, perhaps even ultimately true knowledge, right? Knowledge that you can take to the bank for forever. And so that then is to say that our project is to try to come to know the mind of God in religious forms, or try to come to know the forms, or in more realist form, to try to know the scientific truth about the world. The idea then being that if we can get that project sorted out, we can get knowledge of the way the world actually works, then and only then do we take that knowledge and we formulate a plan of action. We put that knowledge into practice, and we act in the real world. What happens, though, for pragmatism is that they say, given the skepticism, that we are never going to achieve anything that approaches, right? Knowledge, ultimate knowledge, certain knowledge, timeless knowledge, absolute knowledge, and so forth. The fact is that we start from a position of ignorance, and in much of our lives we remain in ignorance. We might have relatively workable theories that are doing pretty good, given our relatively limited framework and perspective on the universe. But rather than getting hung up on this quest for timeless knowledge, for certain truth, and so forth, what the pragmatists will say, what it is to be a human being, what our primary project is to act in the world and to act successfully, right, in the world. That first and foremost, we start from a position of ignorance, and we don't just sit around waiting for revelations to occur before we act. Instead, we act in ignorance. We try stuff, and it's a matter of trial and error. We do this, and then we'll get some feedback, and then we'll try something else. We get some feedback, and it's an ongoing process of first acting, right, in the world, and then secondarily sorting through and evaluating the results here. Instead, what we will argue here as pragmatists, they will say and believe that we are primarily, right, actors, right, or agents, right, or doers, right, or anything in that particular set of synonyms in this category here. So we're interested in functioning, we're interested in performance, we're interested in doing, right, first and foremost, and hence the name pragmatism with its emphasis on, right, working, functionality, doing, right, and so forth. That's a perfectly good, rather, label for this approach philosophically.